Hello, I'm Lindley Gooden. Welcome to Market Force's Insurance in a Connected World webinar hosted in association with Vodafone. Now, by 2025, 75% of the world's population will be classed as connected users. And whether you're in the business of telematics right through to smart homes, the opportunities available for gaining customer insight are growing by the second. In fact, the average person is predicted to interact with a connected device nearly 4,800 times per day, once every 18 seconds. Seems very low to me. So the importance of connectivity to insurers is absolutely vast, and for customers too. It can save lives, reduce fraud, or simply tie together our buying choices. Of course, that means that the new data landscape could also very well transform the role of insurers. So over the next hour, we'll be discussing what the industry and you personally should be doing now to prepare for more connectivity and what the connected future will really look like. Before we do that, let's meet our fantastic panel. First of all is Kenny Leach. Hello, Kenny.
Good afternoon.
Good to see you. Kenny is Global Connected Insurance Director at RSA Group. He heads up RSA's Connected Insurance Center of Excellence, leading on how RSA leverages value from motor telematics, connected home and pet tracking technology, as well as heading up RSA's involvement in the autonomous car space. Now, a key part of his role and a great source for learning is having P&L responsibility for the two young driver telematics portfolios that RSA underwrites in the UK, in Genie and More Than Smart Wheels. Great to see you today. Next we have Alan Hickman. Hello, Alan.
Hello.
Good to see you. Alan is Head of Digital Capability and Delivery at LV. He has over 17 years of experience within personal and commercial lines insurance. His professional passion is InsurTech, and he's an advisory board member for InsurTech Club 2020, with experience spanning digital, finance, underwriting, claims, account management, and operations. Alan's goals lie in achieving trust and transparency and creating frictionless, appropriate services and products for insurance consumers. Great to see you. Next, we have Stefan de Kiesler. Hello.
Good afternoon.
Welcome. Stefan is Program Director of Innovation and Smart Synergies at AGS. Now, he focuses on cross-business innovation and synergy projects and is deeply involved with the European fintech scene. Before joining AGS, he worked for PwC and IBM, where he built extensive knowledge and experience across financial services. Great to have you here. Next, we have Cecilia Sevillano. Hello, Cecilia.
Hello.
Cecilia is Head of Smart Home Solutions at Swiss Re. Now, over the last 15 years, she's specialized in bringing strategic initiatives to market and creating channel distribution strategies through partnerships. Now, in the rise of IoT and data-driven environments, Cecilia has been leading emerging business initiatives and developing InsurTech within Swiss Re. Great to see you too. And last but certainly not least, we have Roberto Poli. Hello.
Hello.
Roberto is Global Head of Telematics Services Sales at Vodafone. Now, since joining Vodafone in 2011, he's gained a wealth of experience in telematics for the insurance industry from a range of sales and management positions. As Global Head of Telematics Services Sales at Vodafone Automotive, Roberto is fully responsible for driving Vodafone's telematics sales growth in the digital insurance, vehicle manufacturer, and fleet space at a global level. He previously worked as CIO in Altea, where he grew his knowledge of international business development and telematics service enablement at a global level. Great to see you all here. Thanks to everyone for being here and to Vodafone for supporting our webinar today. Couldn't do it without you. Okay, over the next hour, we will be covering a lot of ground, and you may well have a few burning questions or comments for us today. So we want to give you the opportunity, if you're watching us live, to put your questions to our panelists. Send them in throughout the webinar, either using the Twitter hashtag, if you're feeling publicly minded, ConnectedInts is the hashtag, ConnectedInts, or question section right here on our webpage. We'll get to as many as we can towards the end of the discussion. So let's get started by setting the scene a little. Let's look at, first of all, with a recap on the development of connected devices. One of the most prominent devices that's developed rapidly is motor telematics. In fact, the UK alone has around 850,000 insurance telematics subscriptions. So, Roberto, where are the main opportunities currently in telematics, perhaps translating to wider insurance?
So I think in telematics now the opportunities are endless, right? So I think it's common, there are common traits amongst the insurance industry, the automotive industry, and the fleet industry. Most is understanding how we get better insight. So how do we transform data to information, to insight, and to wisdom? And actually using these to optimize the way we do business, the way we make our businesses more efficient and more effective. And at the same time, using the connected technologies to actually link us and give us a tool to communicate to our customers, right? To our customers in every industry. The vehicle manufacturers want to talk to the customers, so do the insurance, and so do the fleet companies, right? We are going towards a mobility as a service world, so how do we prepare and use this information and motor telematics to gather all the information that will bring us there?
Telematics is in many ways, a pun already, a vehicle to the same demand, the same need from customers as they have in retail, as they have in other industries. There are many things to learn from other industries, but the principle is data to insight to wisdom.
Correct.
We often don't hear the wisdom piece, but that's really interesting. But how has telematics developed in terms of its take-up, Stefan? Internationally, also here?
Well, I think for once this is where Europe actually has the lead compared to Asia and the States. We have two main markets, I think, in Europe. One was the United Kingdom, which you just mentioned, and the other one is Italy, where there's also high penetration of these telematics devices. The rest of the world, we see mainly activity in the States. There's a difference in terms of the devices that are used. In Europe, it's mainly black box based, whereas in the States, it's more dongle or smartphone based. For the uptake of these telematic devices.
Yeah, that's true, isn't it, Roberto? And the differences will be possibly for technological reasons or potentially, in this case, with smartphones, consumer-driven reasons.
Correct. I think, there are several elements that would drive the decision on the technology, right? So I think, first of all, is actually focus on the outcome. What is the problem you're trying to solve? And what is the solution that you're trying to achieve? And then you select the technology and the device accordingly. So, for example, in the UK, being a market of young drivers, then you need something that actually is very precise and that give you real information, basically, on what is happening, how the vehicle is driven, and how you can influence the driving behavior. When it comes to Italy, it's a similar situation because is the problem, so the take rate and the take-up rate of telematics was driven by fraud, right? So it was not a young driver market, but was more regional, was more area of Italy that developed first. When you don't have fraud problems or you don't have, let's say, young driver problem, then you can go and get cheaper technology, or let's say, make sure that you use devices that would help open up the customer base and actually reach out to more of your customers.
So that's an important thing on demographics. I mean, certainly over here, Kenny and Alan, it was age and price as well. We haven't really talked about price.
Yeah, sure. I think we almost have to strip telematics back, actually. And I think that whilst we can confirm that there's around 850,000 devices in the UK, it's been much slower to take up than anybody expected. And that's because it's been a price-driven proposition. And actually, let's look at the value and what the offering is to the customer. So let's look at how they understand what they think telematics is, for example. So telematics definition is the long-term the long-distance transmission of computerized data, and a black box is a flight recorder, which is actually used in really negative scenarios and situations. So I think we've got a whole piece of work to do on the way in which we strip back the value of telematics. It shouldn't just be driven by price. That's actually a model that insurers are trying to move away from. It's one that the aggregators have fueled, significantly over the last 10 years or so. But insurance and the value that we can create is just so much more than that. And the information we capture on telematics, it can help for a breakdown, it can help for vehicle diagnostics, it can help when you've had an accident, it can help you improve your driving. So it's not just about price. And I think it's what we do with it that's important. So I think we need to take a new look at it.
Kenny?
I agree. Alan and I were talking earlier, and added value services is always been the hope of the place that we get to. The reality of where we are, UK, Italy, US, it's playing out slightly differently, but they're all price plays. And we've ended up in a space where we've got an insurance policy, we've put this technology in it, which is a lot more cost, and then we have a price play. So the only way it works is we've got to be able to take a whole lot more cost out the back end, which then in turn is defining where the opportunity is. And so in the UK, it's young drivers, and you can think about it in terms of traditional pricing and underwriting. And basically, telematics is winning where traditional pricing and underwriting can't actually discriminate. It can't discriminate between people who might have a tendency towards fraud or non-fraud in Italy, or two young drivers that on electronic proposal forms look the same but actually drive quite differently, or a regulated environment like the States where you can get people to try before you buy type telematics. Actually, that gives you information that you can't get from pricing. So it's where it's given additional pricing and underwriting insight. That's really where it's taken hold. But I'd love us to get to the place where we can do added value service propositions.
I mean, the communication thing is still quite difficult because it's rarely from a public point of view the upfront thing. You don't talk about telematics. You don't talk about the techniques of giving you a better advantage, but you do talk about the advantage for younger drivers in this country in particular. And fraud is obviously a clear crime-fighting benefit for everybody concerned in many ways, apart from the criminals in Italy. So yes, the advantages are put first, and that's an interesting one from communications. But of course, connected car production is growing rapidly, with the number of new cars equipped with data connectivity up to around 61 million by 2020. So how do you think, Roberto, that connected cars might develop? We hear so many stories and so many headlines, but are we there yet?
I think we have made massive progress over the last few years. If I have to say if we are there yet, we are not, in my opinion. I think even on the automotive side, I think we are missing the trick. We are missing the value that we are bringing to the user or to the car makers to actually justify the adoption and, let's say, keeping the service live. Because the issue that we are seeing now is that the service goes live, it says a couple of years or 3 years free period, and then no one's renewed the service. Nevertheless, how can we package value into that service so that it will stay active? How do we, let's say, make sure that the technology actually provides good enough data so that we can leverage on creating information and insights? Actually.
Well, from your point of view, Kenny, how do we start to package that value into it? How do we start to make them pay their way? But also, there is still that communications piece about what the public really think about connected cars, as per Google, as per other makers. Tesla.
Yeah, I think it's an easy question to ask. It's a really difficult question to answer because no one's cracked it yet. Particularly from an insurance perspective, how do you sell a premium priced insurance product that's got all these extras? And Alan referenced the aggregators in the UK. That's the way that people access the insurance market is through price comparison websites. Price comparison websites compare prices. They do it very well. And so the vast majority of the marketplace in the UK shop for the personalised insurance on price comparison websites. Yeah. So as soon as you step away from that and want to do something different with a premium service, you've immediately got a distribution challenge. And even if you solve a distribution challenge, you've then got to explain why your product is different to other products. And then you've got to solve the economic problem of making it work. It's quite a challenge in terms of making that whole thing work.
Yeah, and I think it's a space that you see a lot of insurtech and startup, or a lot of the fraternity trying to head towards that space. But the reality is that they haven't got the customer base, the marketing power and the spend and the budgets to be able to fight in that space wholeheartedly.
But there is a tone of voice in terms of engaging customers, and insurance has never been very good at it, but actually things are changing. The aggregator sites have done their thing and used their brand to get people involved, and there is a communications piece. But let's just move on to wearables, and for the moment, Stefan, how have the wearables developed, and where next?
Well, they've gone through a bit of a cycle, also a hype cycle, where initially people thought everybody would get them. Then you saw it was more the health people that were, or the fitness people that were buying them. Actually, I think it's a very interesting area because last report, and that was a bit of a surprise for many people, Apple sold more watches now than the whole Swiss watch industry. And Apple has a strong focus on the health part more and more. And what I basically see, it's not about the devices, basically. It's not about the gadget or not, but it's about the experience it allows for the customer. And there I think I see an area, one, of course, for the people that are really into health and the preventive part that you can get with the data, where you can really allow people to live healthier lives if they're open for that. But I guess there is a target group, given the the volumes that you see sold with these devices. The other part is actually for people that are really in need of care. So we call our system healthcare, but it's actually sick care that we have today. And what these devices coupled with data will allow is for a number of people, for example, once you have a hospital admission, you'll be allowed to go home much sooner. Yes, you can do your therapeutics at home. You don't have to go back to the hospital for these things. The data that you now have with the doctor is a one-sided event. You see your doctor and then you're off again, and the only thing he has in his medical file is when he saw you. Yeah. Here you will have a lot more information to be able. So those are a number of advantages which I really believe add value to a consumer and will believe it will be valuable for him as well.
Well, as a consumer, as a member of the family, if an elderly person was going home and they could get home earlier and they could still be checked on, they could still be monitored, well, that's a great advantage. But it's not just humans that may have to go home after an operation. It can also be animals. Kenny?
Yes, it can. And if you look at human health insurance for individuals, I think we'd all see, Vitality is a really interesting model, and they've shifted the perception of private medical insurance away from this claims paying service to something that's much more about well-being and looking after yourself and promoting good health and rewarding it. We're a big pet insurer. One of the things that we're looking at really hard is how do we change pet insurance? Yeah. Pet insurance is private medical insurance for cats and dogs. And we're looking at Vitality and saying, well, how do we do that for cats and dogs? Yeah. There has to be opportunity. And as it stands at the moment, we've got many thousands of effectively doggy Fitbits, Pit Pats out with our dog customers at the moment, gathering lots of data. Yeah. And we're trying to figure out how we can shift our proposition into something that's much more about well-being and helping our dog and cat owners look after their dogs and cats much better.
It's refreshing to have a cross-species insurance tariff, isn't it? It's very, very interesting. You may have, the eagle-eyed amongst you may have noticed that we haven't spoken to Cecilia yet. That's about to change. Smart home technology could transform home insurance too. Remotely controlled lighting and security systems promise to reduce the risk of theft, while smart thermostat and home appliances could potentially prevent flood or fire damage and more. But consumer adoption in the UK is still low, with one survey finding that just 2% of us use smart lights and appliances. Now, that's just one area. But do you think, Cecilia, we're on near a tipping point with the Amazon Echo and the Google Home and the like, reaching our doorstep in the last couple of years?
Yeah, adoption. It's a typical question that we get. Are people going to really get connected? And my answer would be they are already getting connected. If we look at the US, for example, 26% of households already have a connected device. So that's 1 in 4 households. And in Europe, some markets, 11%. So certainly, Google Alexa has really triggered last year the connectivity with some lights attached to that. But I think there will be other game changers, for example, in the retail, like IKEA. So IKEA now went out with the light system, which is cheap, easy to install, talks to Alexa, and on top of that, they have 900 million visitors coming to their stores where they can also educate them, because smart homes is also about education. So,
and before we came on today, we were talking about what Alexa, for example, or Echo has done to change our perception, because I'm still a little bit suspicious. That's just my nature. I don't want my daughter, if I had a daughter, to order her favourite dress online by saying, hey, I want this dress. There is still, for me, a suspicion. There is not for so many people. What's been the magic that's been helping us to adopt? Is it the personal touch that perhaps a voice gives?
Yeah, exactly. I see a shift from touch. So actually commanding everything from your phone towards voice, because it's so easy, it's so friendly, so natural. And particularly with elderly care, this is going to be really the way that all this population is going to get into the connected space.
Any other thoughts in terms of, yes, we're talking about smart homes, smart buildings at the moment, but any other thoughts around?
So I think we're only sort of touching on we're at the embryonic stage, and I think that Amazon and Google Home of the like have really helped to make that shift, because it's about the value-added services, right? And what you can actually do with an Alexa device, for example, prior to connecting it up to your home for added value services outside of that. But going back to consumer adoption, we're looking on average at around 328 million things connecting to the internet, new things, on a monthly basis, with a projection that by 2025 we're going to be sitting at around 74 billion. So there's no question that we're going to see that significant adoption. But for me, it's about the education, because a lot of people buy the Amazon Dot, which was the reduced price version, because actually it allows you to get rid of your hi-fi, it allows you to connect up to Amazon Music, it allows you to do smart search without using a tap method. But actually there's just so much more to it. And I think what you'll see is the trickle effect. And you'll see that with what's possible moving forward. And I think what they've done is they've made it relevant, and they've made it possible because of the price points that are actually on those devices. Look back 2 years ago what the Amazon Alexa sold for, and look at this Christmas where it was without doubt the top-selling gadget. It's affordable.
And it takes one, in this case, retailer, who are often at the cutting edge of that, testing and learning, trying these things out and getting them into homes, to open up that door. Things like smart meters, obviously we've had smart meters around for a while. Can other connected devices be really, really useful to insurers? And ultimately, as we're talking about, I think we're learning one thing, useful to customers.
Yeah, and I think that's the challenge when we're thinking as insurers, how do we get people connected? Because I don't think it's going to be the main role of insurers to get all those connected devices there, but our challenge is really to get people the devices that have an impact on claims and on perils. Nobody wakes up in the morning saying, okay, I want a water leakage detector in my place. So there's where we start touching on business models, and one to look to, I think, is one of the smartphones. So in exchange of a certain engagement, 2-3 years, plus a monthly fee, you get the devices, you can upgrade them, change them, and be connected. So we see this happening already in some markets. Not only energy companies, but also insurers using this model.
Briefly, yeah.
And I think it really goes towards what the future state of insurance looks like. And
What does it look
that's
like?
preventative measures. You know, nobody wants to have a claim. Nobody wants to have a flood, to be burgled, to lose items of sentimental value. What we need to be doing is seeing how we can command the space on prevention. That's where we can really add value.
And briefly, Kenny.
I think on the general insurance market, I think for many years we've sort of operated in a paradigm where insurers try to cherry pick risks and beat their competitors at getting people on board. And then what we do is we service as efficiently as we can, which could be servicing a policy or it could be paying a claim. But we sort of accept that all the bad stuff that happens to people and to organisations will just happen. Now there's a different game in town. Technology means we've got the opportunity to try and change the amount of bad stuff that happens. And young driver telematics, by nudging and influencing behaviour, less of our young people are having crashes. So there's life's been saved because of motor telematics. You know, by using smart home technology or smart pet technology, we can have safer homes. We can have homes which don't flood or they don't get as flooded as they might otherwise have been. We can have pets that are healthier, so we can actually change the amount of bad stuff that happens.
But there has to be a lot of change right now, because that's a whole different way of thinking, one that's not unexpected, but one that does need a different look at the business model and a different look at how you interact with customers. We must move on. Now that we've taken a quick tour of devices, some of the areas already seeing a shift, some of that business model talk, which is really interesting. Let's look internally and look at real-time insight. How could the opportunities be embraced by departments within your business, first of all? Roberto, will connected devices have an impact, or what impact will connected devices have on teams such as fraud and claims?
I think the importance of real-time information is actually being able to take control of the event at the very moment it does happen, right? Having the ability to act and, first of all, provide timely reaction and the engagement with the customers. First of all, it can be helping the customer in a moment of distress. So you are there in a moment that counts. And also it helps gathering the information. And then technology at the same time help us collecting the information and the dynamics of what has happened before, during, and after the event, right? So this is actually helping the claims team to actually be much more effective in deciding where the causing factors and actually how to address that. But at the same time, reacting quickly. So sending the recovery truck and then making sure that the car is repaired in a franchise garage, right? So these reduces immensely the operational cost of running the claims management.
Ultimately, though, you cannot prevent unless you have at least real-time insight. You start to need to forecast. You start to need to use AI and machine learning. You start to need to think ahead for each customer in a personalised way, which is still quite a big jump from where we are.
Yeah, and I think we, as an industry, as a collective, let's say, technology and insurance, we have been working on outdated data somehow, right? So now we have the ability, and we were discussing this just before our webinar, is we have the ability to have fresh and real-time information and to adapt our machine learning models, our artificial intelligence to act quickly and to be much more effective in the way we address risk, but also the way we provide assistance. At the end of the day, as an insurance industry, we are making a promise to the users that we will be there when help is required, right? Yeah. And technology is actually allowing us to do exactly that.
Okay, let's look at pricing and underwriting, Cecilia. What opportunities are there in terms of pricing and underwriting if connections are made well?
Yeah, so connectivity is going to bring a sharper insight on the risk analysis. And there's, of course, a journey that we need to do and we're doing with some of our clients, insurers. So the first one will be to build a correlation between devices and loss ratios. So we're talking a lot about many estimates of how much loss will be mitigated. But we need to do this in a scientific model. Yeah. Secondly, also to begin to integrate all these dynamic factors into the static model that we have today, that is how many toilets, which floor, but then begin to integrate occupancy, activities, and the risk level. And then also very important to understand individuals' risk profile. So we're talking here about behavioral data and how what people do at home and how we can translate that into pricing.
Could there ever be a time when we as insurance customers are subject to a pay-as-you-go model, Kenny? Pay as you forecast.
So I think that opportunity exists, and I think people are coming out with business models just now. Personally, I always think it's interesting to ask the question, what problem are you trying to solve? Because I do look at some things and I worry that we're doing them because we can, not because they actually solve a problem. Technology is allowed to do a whole load of things, and they won't all necessarily win out in the end. But there's some really great business models out there. There's a company called Zego, which recognises that we're in the gig economy, and the gig economy means that we've got people who do jobs during the day, and then at night they might want to go and do Deliveroo, Uber, whatever, and they've got a job they might do 4 hours one week, 6 hours the next week. They then have a commercial lines need for insurance for the vehicle that they're driving. The traditional model is they'd have to buy a commercial lines policy for a year. Yeah. That won't work. So Zego have come up with this pay-as-you-go solution that integrates into a service, so it's actually meeting a real need. The real need is customers want pizzas delivered to their house, or they want a hire car. But to facilitate that, insurance has to change and evolve, and they've come up with a different and evolved insurance model, which then allows the general public to get what they want. That's a great example.
A good example. Any other thoughts, Stefan?
No, I fully agree, and it's also, it's going to be like a pay-per-use model that you see more and more, because customers are also using that in their real life and not in their insurance life. So we as insurers, we follow the real life. So you have to copy the behavior of the real life. We can't indeed have static systems where we take coverage for a full year, whereas a customer might say, but half of the time I'm not even using this. Why should I pay for that? So us insurers will have to follow the real life of the customer if we want to survive.
In some ways, that's existed in travel insurance for some time, that you would choose when you buy. You don't have to have it all the time, but you must have it, if you're wise, when you go away. Any other thoughts, Sam?
Yeah, it's I sort of see it as pay how you go rather than pay as you go, whether it's your home, whether it's your car, how many miles you drive, the behaviour that you emit when you drive, the fact that you might leave a home and your connected devices are going to know that your window's been left unlocked, or perhaps it's been unoccupied for a certain period of time. Yeah. I think there's a model there. I think that we're a fair way from it. I think that we go back to the previous points in the way in which we capture, utilise that data, understand it, and make it actionable to be able to provide preventative measures and pay how you go models. So I think we're a while away, but I think again, you know, as Kenny and I have discussed several times today already, there's just so many opportunities. There's a proliferation, and that for me is one of them. Yeah.
Kenny and I first met a few years ago in a studio near this, and we were talking about similar issues, the relevance of the insurer, and we've covered some of that today. The relevance of the insurer, you know, how you start to, how customers need to think of you and interact with you beyond claims and renewal to get involved. Do you think that there is a fundamental shift happening in the role of the insurer? Do you think we're there yet? Because among all of our conversations, and everyone watching us today will have had those conversations, similar conversations. What needs to happen now? What can we do as insurers to move forward, to start to help people to think of us differently? Cecilia.
So on the home space, it's very evident that claims will begin to decrease with time. So we see a shift from claims handling business to a preventive one. Because it's an incredible opportunity to have all this insight from the data to actually prevent bad things from happening. So clients will be willing to pay even a higher premium to avoid bad stuff from happening, not only with regards to perils or to the water or fire or theft, but also to people they care. And for that, these are meaningful services they will get back.
Do you think there may be in terms of the way your model works or the interaction, the relationship between insurers and customers, will there be a more fluid relationship where a lot of it is automated perhaps? It's fairly routine. There's not a claim as such that actually different departments will become part of a very rich ongoing relationship. Could that happen? Alan first, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll go back to the Vitality model. You know, what's really interesting about that model is Vitality have an average engagement with their brand and their customers on 32 different occasions a year. And that's because of the value-added services that they're providing. They're actually a staple in their life. You know, whether that's because of this free Starbucks coffee or the monitoring of the activity and the 10,000 steps away, they're actually educating people on how you can live longer. And they're providing value in return with benefits which outweigh the cost of what your insurance policy actually is, right? So I think it will change the way in which we can communicate and the way in which insurance consumers understand our role, because our role is not just to be there on their worst day and their worst moment. Our role is so much more when we utilise the data that we've got available to us.
Insurance is one of the problems and challenges with insurance at the moment is the insurance customer dynamic. So a customer makes a claim, the customer wins, the insurer loses. The customer doesn't make a claim, the insurer wins, the customer's lost in their head. So you get this win-lose thing going on. Connected world gives us the opportunity to have propositions. We've already seen it with telematics. The opportunity to have a proposition where we're getting data daily and we're giving personalised information back to our customers on a daily basis that is relevant to them, that they can take action on. It's really a risk management package. We don't tell customers this is risk management data because that wouldn't be particularly engaging, but it's information to them which is relevant to them. They can take action on it, and by taking action, it actually reduces the risk. That's the opportunity we've got.
So practically, as an insurer of all shapes and sizes, you know, what can you do now to start to guide yourself to a much more natural, personal touch relationship? You know, what do I need to have to do now? Using technology, using the insights that we're already learning today about the principles of better customer interaction, personalised products, the use of connectivity to improve the information and insight and wisdom. You know, what do I need to do now as an insurer if I haven't done it already?
Well,
it's a big question.
It's a question for me, actually, the outsider.
Well, let's throw it around.
But just to give my point of view as an outsider, as an enabler, let's say, of the industry, and the thing that is that still feels like lacking or not mature enough is actually how much do we engage with customer. Motor telematics is a very powerful tool because it's actually motor insurance is mandatory, right? You need to have it. And that is a fantastic platform to communicate to your customer, to start engaging, to learn from data, to build something on top of that, right? So this is not being done yet. So we are using telematics in a sort of siloed approach, and we are not using it actually, even with the GDPR upcoming, right? And the fact that we will be limited in the way we can use customer information and we can distribute them. We need to be mindful of their privacy, and then telematics at the same time give us a fantastic communication tool. Communication to move from price discussion to value discussion, and then being able to actually enlarge our proposition and bring the customer into something that is more meaningful to their life.
Stefan.
But what I think you need, what you're referring to, is you need to solve a customer problem. And the customer problem is not that insurance is mandatory for his car. He wants either mobility or he wants to drive his car. And all the rest is for him is just a pain point. If you look at what Waze did a fantastic thing. I mean, you have people now with very expensive cars, with very expensive navigation systems in the cars, and you see them navigating using Waze.
That's right.
So what Waze did, they really found a pain point and solved it with the navigation system, with the people giving the information in the cars. That's what we also need to do. So on the one hand, I think when you look at IoT or connected, you'll get a lot of data that will help you do your core job better, which is the assessing risks and the mitigation. On the engagement part, no customer wants to be engaged frequently on insurance. We can always dream of that, it's not going to happen. So we need to find areas where we can solve these problems for the customer, for example, on mobility. And if we can do that using the information we have, then I think we'll have a very strong connection with the customer. And to me, it means we will not be doing that alone. We will be working more and more with partners, with other companies, even Vitality, to take the example, which is a very good example, has a number of partners in their system. And that is for the customer appealing, but the customer says, this is great for me. And it's not just one company saying, I'm going to do all of this. It's a company saying, I'm working with you, and this is what we're providing.
Absolutely. Partnerships are fundamentally important as well, which we haven't really got into, but this is something that we would ordinarily get into because there's a lot to talk about. Maybe we'll do that in the questions section, but we are about 10 minutes from putting your questions to our panelists. I've looked on the screen, there are lots coming through, so if you haven't already, please do send a question or a comment if you have it using the hashtag on Twitter, which is ConnectedInts, or right here on the webpage if you're feeling more bashful. But let's move on finally to the road ahead, starting off with how the rise of connected devices will change the competitive landscape. And in some ways, this is relevant to partnership as well. Which players are most likely to be a threat, Cecilia, do you think, to insurers as they look now?
Yeah, so today we see many smart home players of the ecosystem looking very closely into the insurance space, because if we say that there are less claims and that services will take more of an importance, then they see an opportunity for them. Basically, energy companies, telcos, they're already at people's homes. So this could be new entrants, and we're talking about competition. They can be partners or competitors, depending where you're looking at and the customer journey. But the biggest threats where I see of newcomers will be Amazon, for example, that already is having life insurance for their own employees, 1 million employees, or Google that has so much data about people. They have the Gmails, they have the Google Maps, they have the Google search, so they know so much about individuals, and they can use it for risk assessment whenever they want.
Is it just about the big players? I mean, you don't have to say the internet service provider Yahoo, you just know it's Yahoo. These large names with a brand, with people having existing knowledge of these companies, are they the threat? Because it is a time of disruption. Everyone's looking to get in the middle of somebody else's business. Or is it small, nimble, exciting products from smaller players? Well, what do you think? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think naturally you would jump to Amazon and Google as the threat, just because
in
of the
most
sheer,
businesses.
In most businesses, because of the sheer size and the power. I think, sort of going back to a couple of previous points, I think what we need to do is remember what our role is. I think we need to, life's too short, right? Let's not just waste it selling insurance and dealing with the odd claim that pops up. Let's take advantage. Myself and Kenny spoke earlier about the multitude of opportunities. And actually there's many reasons why Amazon and Google wouldn't make a play quite so quickly within the spaces that we're operating in. There are significant elements that you'd need to consider in order to make a serious play. Yeah. What we can do is learn from them. So let's learn from the way in which they actually solve customer problems. Let's remember that all of the technology we talk about, it's an enabler. We've got to give the customer outcome. And quite often it's not what the customer knows that they actually need. So I think it's about learning from those within that space and being aware of that threat because of the sheer scale and size, but making sure that we're proactive as an industry. As an industry, we're huge, we're significant. We mustn't underplay that.
And whereas, I'll go to Kenny now in a second, but whereas it used to be in insurance that the customer may not know what they want, so we'll tell them, now the customer may not know what they want, so let's communicate with them, find out, and really act on it quickly. I mean, that is, and actually it's reality now.
Yeah, but quite often actually, you want to throw away the thing that they've told you they want, because actually it's not. It's not. It's something completely random that actually they haven't even thought about themselves.
Right.
And that for me is the key.
And I think that the landscape that we look into now is just so exciting, and yes, there will be new competitors. However, I think the big opportunity for insurers is all the innovation, all the insurtechs out there, all the new startups, and there are just so many, and there's so many different takes on old problems, on old solutions. And our challenge as insurers is to try and pick the ones that we think have got legs and run with them and test them. But it's great because it's an opportunity for us to test lots of new things and do it in a lower risk environment. It's not, gone are the days of spending 2 years and hundreds of millions of pounds launching a new product on our own enterprise systems. This is about getting something out to market, minimal viable product, test and learn. Has it got legs? If it has, then build up the proposition behind it and wire it in. It's a fantastic time to be in insurance.
And it's possible. Partnerships are absolutely the way forward. It's the same in other financial services. Those partnerships allow you to bolt on somebody, a group of people who are fantastic at what they do, or a new product that fits very well with what you do. But it also just allows you to be nimble. It allows you to take away the infrastructure problems, the legacy problems that you may have had before. And would you encourage the industry to always be looking at the moment for insurtechs are clearly a very important part of that, but working with people who have a shared vision of the customer, a shared insight.
Yeah, I believe that today in insurance we are very product centric, and we need to be customer centric and really take the customer journey approach. So to understand where are these levers of value and where we want to position. Do we want to be in the installation, in the devices, in the maintenance, in the prevention, and in the claims? And in each of these points, should we build on our own or should we partner?
Yeah.
What would be the best decision there?
Yeah.
And nobody is going to be able to do this on their own. So it's to find the right partners on those value points that you are not willing to build.
Roberto, early on you talked about data, insight, wisdom. One of the big issues, and you'll have come across it many times, is getting the team involved and the team to understand the data and to not just cherry pick the best data, but to work better with data and insight that your organisation already has. There's no lack of data. It may be out of date, but the information is there. How do you help the teams to start to work together and start to act more quickly with the systems you have with data?
So I think, this takes us back to the partnership model, right? So none of us alone could actually have as many information and as much wisdom, let's say, or knowledge, or what is needed, or what the customer outcome is to do it alone, right? So we need to be able, we are drowning in data. We have a vast amount of data and we need to know what to do with it, right? And this means like sitting together as a collective, think as partners and try to create something that is meaningful for the end user. So this is really where we bring our expertise together. So from the technology side, from the insurance side, and actually we still need to focus, as everyone has been saying today, on the customer and on the outcome, because that is what will drive us to know what we need to find out of the data that we have collected.
Before we do close up to audience questions, individual thoughts, just really quick thoughts. Cecilia, I'll go around on what you can tackle, a particular issue that perhaps is common to any large organisation, any small organisation, in terms of getting that team to be on the same page, to work with, in this case, data, connectivity? Are there things, I mean, is it skills? Is it training? Is it board adoption? Just pick one that you think would be a priority.
Well, I think that what we're seeing now with connectivity is that soft skills take more relevance because machines are going to do everything that is arithmetical, mathematical. So emotional intelligence is key, empathy, creativity. So there needs to be some shift in skills and training, but to lever on that.
Stefan?
Culture, I'd say. The culture of your organization is key. You really need to boost creativity, but it has to come from everywhere. You can't just do it top down. It needs to be there, but also bottom up. You need people to be willing to experiment and play around. So for me, the cultural part is.
And also to close up the gap between the people at the top and the people near the bottom, and for them to work together and share, actually being able to share ideas, I guess that would be, and to see them through. If you don't see the ideas through, then you're not going to give another idea. Alan?
Yeah, I agree. I think culturally, and actually it's really refreshing. So our new CEO, Steve Trelaw, describes it as a burning platform that we're standing on and the rating in which we give it. And I think it's about giving it a rating, but based on your understanding of where we are and what the technology is going to enable. But ultimately, I think we've still got a large cultural shift to go through.
Kenny, finally, would it be cultural? Would it be strategy? Would it be let's plough into partnerships? What would it be?
I think it's culturally with a little bit of structure in there as well. So I think I'm a big fan of if you're trying to solve a problem, if you're trying to take advantage of an opportunity, you want great people waking up in the morning thinking about nothing other than trying to solve that problem, which means having a ring-fenced team, having focus, having the exec sponsorship to allow that to happen, and giving them the freedom to go on and just do what they're great at.
Without freedom, the culture can't possibly change.
Yeah.
That was really good. It is time. It's quarter to the hour. Really detailed discussion so far. Really hope that you've found the insights from our panel so far helpful, although we have so much to cover. We're not finished yet because it's now time to hear from you. Throughout the webinar, we've been asking you to get in touch, sending your questions and comments on the webpage right here where you're watching us, and through Twitter if you're watching us live. Before we do put your questions to the panel, please do, if you can, just take a tiny moment to rate today's webinar so far. That'd be great. A poll question should appear on the feed right about now. Your response is confidential, but really, really good to hear and really useful to us. So in the meantime, let's move on to your questions. They are right here, and they are burning a hole in my tablet. First question, that's a new phrase, we used it. David Hayden Case. Thank you very much, David. I don't have your position, but your question is, what upcoming technologies or connected devices are the panel most excited about and why? You know, we haven't done that. It's really interesting, David. New technologies that you think are interesting. Who fancies that? I'm going to throw it to you. It can be a 10-word answer or a 100-word answer. Yeah.
So let's try to make it simple. So I think I would actually give a quite a generic answer. So the beauty of what is happening now in the technology space is that we are making technology more affordable, right? More affordable means that we can actually reach out to a wider audience. And wider audience also means that we can actually build better product, right? And so I cannot pinpoint a single technology actually that I find extremely exciting at the moment, but I see this trend of actually making things simpler and easier to use and cheaper, so that actually can...
Yeah, the whole principle of technology, the most effective technologies being an enabling tool. We've talked about it. You know, if it allows you to do your job better, which is possibly why emotional intelligence, the soft skills, if you can call them that. I think soft skills are actually very hard skills now. I mean, it's really difficult to do it, and you need to do it to give a personal service to customers. That's at the heart of customer service. Any other thoughts, Alan?
Yeah, for me, it's natural language engines and the way in which the chatbot fraternity is excelling. There's some fantastic use cases on going from a standard static chatbot with predetermined frequently asked questions and decision tree style logic to actually being conversational, and the opportunities that exist within that space to be able to provide a personalised and assisted service to a customer. But in a consistent way, and not necessarily with perhaps the significant workforce that you were once reliant upon. I think it's a great opportunity for insurers.
I like when it's done well, sentiment analysis. I think it's fantastic, really interesting. Stefan?
Well, like you said, it's not about technology, but if I would have to say technology, what I find very interesting is CRISPR, so the gene editing technology, because the potential I can see to make people's life really better is amazing on that one, although there are some challenges, but that's the one I find most intriguing myself.
Yeah. Okay, well, please, Kenny.
Well, I was just going to say, I'm not sure which pocket it's in, my smartphone.
Yeah.
I mean, I probably would have given the same answer two or 3 years ago, but it's a remote control for our lives, and increasingly so. And apparently you can make phone calls on it as well.
Sorry, that seems a little bit out of date to me.
Absolutely.
It really is. It's
So
true.
I've heard.
Very good. Yes, absolutely. We'll carry on. Lots of questions to ask. Andreas, I apologise for the pronunciation of your surname. Mavrudia, I hope that's right, or Mavrudi, I hope that's correct. Andreas, thank you very much. Senior Futures Manager Mobility at Aviva. Thank you very much for writing in. What does the panel think about security in this data-rich new world? Security. Let's do a quick one on security because it's always been a concern, but are we moving past the security concerns as being a big block to connecting devices? It's almost a perception thing, isn't it, really?
I think I can speak from the Vodafone perspective, and 20 million customers that we still need to secure, right? So applying the same paradigm to make sure that we make connected device secure as well, and connected data secure. So it is a big topic, right? So, and it does require a lot of attention because, of course, from a big power comes great responsibilities, right? So
yeah, and there are so many issues involved in this. I mean, we could go on for many hours talking about security as a principle. But of course, the more connected devices or connected your world is, the more potential there is to have confidential personal data. Let's not go to GDPR just right now, but in terms of security, let's go with the importance. Kenny, the importance of refocusing on security as we connect more.
I think it is. I think it's hugely important, and I always worry that I'm not worried enough about it. And I talk to people internally who get me worried about it, but because it's really easy to do stuff. It's really easy to connect devices, and it's really easy to forget about all the protocols you need to have. But they're so important, and not a day goes past when we're not talking about some sort of data breach or cyber threat or misinformation or whatever. And you think if somebody really set about the insurance industry, just how robust would our infrastructure be? And that's something that I think we should all have not that far away from the front of our minds, and certainly it's a board level topic.
Yeah. In my last year as a journalist, I interviewed 6 people in separate stories on ID fraud. And just seeing that face to face, reminding yourself of what can happen, you don't want to be there. So it's certainly true of customers as well. So the responsibility is very high.
It is, and we must accept we are pretty much an untrusted industry. And the proliferation of that data and the importance of the security of it is paramount. And that comes back to our challenges that we have around data, not knowing just what to do with it at the moment, right? To make sure that we turn it into wisdom, but how we can protect that to ensure that we build trust. Because people feel big brotherish, whether it's telematics, whether it's connected home. So the fact that we've got access to that data is scary enough. The fact that others might have, it's powerful. We have to be careful.
We haven't gone into too much detail, but GDPR is almost here as we're live today. So the onus is on you to make sure that everything that is obvious is secure, that you have absolutely reviewed the data of your clients, your customers, and hold it safely. The developments will emerge over the next couple of years, but it's there's a lot to talk about. We can't go into it today, sadly. But let's carry on with Claire Attenborough. Thank you very much, Principal Risk Management Surveyor at Ecclesiastical. Do you have any concerns relating to the use of devices, for example, thieves overriding security devices? Okay, we're back to security, but let's talk about the practical, almost the handheld. Kenny, you love the smartphone, which sadly has gone somewhere as it's missing.
It's in this one.
It's there somewhere. Security in that way.
So there many devices out there in the market that actually focus on digital protection. So it is possible now to actually, and I have it on my phone, I know exactly what's going on at home because I have alerts of what's happening on my broadband. So of course cyber is something that nobody can really assess, but there are possibilities to improve by detecting very quickly there is somebody in my broadband coming into the camera, for example, and just shut them off. This is prevention as well, which is so important.
There is a risk for that they steal that device and they get access to it, that they suddenly access to a lot more than just your device, and that is depending on where you put the hub of your controls.
Of course.
But you can shut from the phone if that happens.
But if I take your phone,
oh, the phone.
I take your phone, so
it's that practical effect. It's something I'm always aware of. But let's carry on. We've got 5 minutes left, just under 5 minutes. So let's get a couple more questions in if we can. Andrew Wallace, Strategy and Innovation Lead at Direct Line Group. Thank you very much, Andrew. Quite a long question. Let's just rattle through it. Most vehicle telematics usage in the UK is centred on safe driving for young people. That's here in the UK. Do the panel think that telematics data could be used more widely, for instance, engine performance, tyre pressures, maintenance needs, etc., to help people maintain their cars in optimum condition? That's through Twitter. Thanks very much indeed, Andrew. I guess the answer is yes, if it was shareable. Any thoughts on that cross-fertilisation of data that can, again, feed into the value of this service?
Yeah, I think we need to be mindful also of the boundaries between the automotive world and the insurance world and the connected devices, right? So we are somehow trying to get information out of a car that are, in most cases, not supposed to be taken by aftermarket devices, right? So we need to be respectful of that. Are they relevant and are they important to have a car more effective? Yes. And this is again bring us back to the partnership and to the cultural shift. So can we work with the vehicle manufacturer to actually make sure that they can provide us more accurate data that we could reverse engineer ourselves? So yes, the answer is yes, we should do it. We simply should do it differently from what we have done until today. Because we need to make sure of the accuracy, of the safety, the security, and we need to act as an ecosystem.
Yeah. It's a really interesting question, which gets to the nub of quite a big point, which is, as insurers, we have to decide where our relevance is, because there's all sorts of opportunity and all sorts of interesting things, and we've got choices to make. But at some point, we can stray into something where it's a bit to the side and not actually directly relevant to us. And where those lines are, we'll all make different judgments. But that question takes you right to the heart of that issue.
Almost done. More questions, but we have to finish on one, and I'll ask this question. Joseph Mills, thank you very much. Pricing analyst at RSA. I won't throw it to you, Kenny, just to save the blushes. But to everybody here, how are large corporate entities with a plethora of legacy systems going to compete with the invasion of InsurTech? Let's just finally go off with Roberto. Invasion, that's a strong way of putting it, but there is partnership available. How can you work happily together as your clients in insurance?
I think that this is another point where the partnership comes through very nicely, right? So being able to actually leverage on the best asset of each of us, leaving the legacy system behind, right? So, for example, if there is something that is that is super difficult to do on a legacy system of the insurer, let's do it on the partner side, right? That can be nimble, quick, agile to develop the solution, and at the same time use the same approach to do it in another way. So there are a lot of new things that the InsurTech, but also established insurance players are building that are new and agile. Why don't we use those capabilities to actually enrich the ecosystem again? So I think this is a little bit the point. So as long as we try to do everything ourselves in whatever industry, from telecommunication to the insurance, we are going to fail. So the future is not the past. The world is moving at a pace that we haven't never seen before, right? So we need to be able to leverage on each other.
Okay, well, that's it. I really do hope that you've enjoyed the last hour and that it's given you some useful take to the office advice to help you in preparing for a truly connected landscape. Thanks for sending in your questions. Sorry we couldn't get through to quite all of them. There were lots more on there. But if you do have a couple of minutes right now, please do fill out our poll, which should be appearing on the discussion feed now, to give us your feedback. We really do value your opinion, so let us know what you thought of the discussion today. But we hope to see you at one of Market Force's upcoming events that will look at some of these challenges and solutions in more detail. You can find out more on the website, marketforce.eu.com. Well, many thanks to our fantastic panel today for taking part, to Vodafone for supporting our webinar, and of course thanks to you for watching, sending in your comments, your questions, and we'll see you next time. Until then, all the best. Take care.